Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Translations and purports by Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurava Vishari. Okay, so we're reading from the Adi Lila, chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya and 5 features, starting from text 140. Happening. So what's happening is that Lord Chaitanya is meeting with these Mayavadis, and initially they challenged him, and then they asked him to explain himself, and then when he did explain himself, then they were very open-minded and they were very appreciative of what he was saying, and so now they're going to respond. He says they're going to speak very humbly. Okay, text 148. Vedamaya Murti Tumi Sakshat Narayana Shama Aparadha Purveye Kailun Nindana. Translation. Dear sir, you are Vedic knowledge personified and are directly Narayan himself. Kindly excuse us for the offenses we previously committed by criticizing you. So I wonder if they actually figured out that Lord Chaitanya was an incarnation of Krishna, or whether they were just calling him Narayan because they call everyone Narayan. Let's find out. Purport. The complete path of Bhakti Yoga is based upon the process of becoming humble and submissive. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the Mayavadi sannyasis were very humble and submissive after hearing his explanation of the Vedanta Sutra, and they begged to be pardoned for the offenses they had committed by criticizing the Lord, or simply chanting and dancing and not taking part in the study of the Vedanta Sutra. We are propagating the Krishna consciousness movement simply by following in the footsteps of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. We may not be very well versed in the Vedanta Sutra aphorisms and may not understand their meaning, but we follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas, and because of our strictly and obediently following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's be understood that we know everything regarding the Vedanta Sutra. It just reminded me what we were listening to a class this morning at Tampuru by Tamal Krishnaraj, and he was saying that it's not so difficult to be a guru, right? Like all you have to do is you just need to hear from your teachers, hear, submissively from your gurus, understand what they say, and then you just pass that on, right? Say that the guru is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Right? So you know the process. Like yesterday we were talking about those three things: Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. Right? Sambandha being understanding who am I, what is my relationship with this world, what am I supposed to be doing here, right? Who is God? What is my relationship with Him? How do I interact with Him? And what is God's relationship with the world? So when we know that, then when we understand that our relationship with God is that we are His eternal servant, and we understand that this world is God's energy, and that our relationship with this world is that this is not our place. We need to reconnect with God and go to the spiritual world. So when we understand all that, then we start naturally engaging in, because of that knowledge, it's clear. We get clarity on who we are and what we're supposed to do, that we're supposed to actually engage in the processes of devotional service. And then when we do, so then we know the way, and then doing those processes of devotional service, as we talked about yesterday, then we are going the way, right? We're actually practicing what we understand. And then teaching that to others, right? Whoever we meet. We're like, yeah, this material world is not a fun place. There's a lot of suffering in this world, a lot of injustice and difficulty. But if we take to spiritual life, then it can give us a lot of solace, a lot of inspiration, a lot of comfort, and a really bright future, basically. So knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So yeah, Lord Chaitanya is saying the same thing here that we heard in class, that it's not so difficult. You don't have to be a huge scholar. You don't have to spend a whole lifetime studying some cryptic scriptures. You just listen to those who know. You just listen to gurus, your teachers who know the way and who are going the way and who are able to show you the way. And then having been shown, you just show others the same thing that you've learned. So that's what Prabhupada is saying here. But that requires some humility, right? Because the humility is that, okay, I've been trying to live my life a certain way for all these years, thinking that I know best, that I know what's best for me. I know better than anyone else because I'm me and nobody else knows me like I know me. So don't try to tell me how to live my life because you do you and let me do me. So then it takes some humility to be like, actually, I've made some bad choices and I kind of like messed up my life a little bit. And I actually might need a little guidance, from somebody who is more enlightened than myself. So that requires a lot of humility, which is rare in this day and age, but it's very valuable because that's what we need to learn, actually get knowledge and clarity and direction. So he's saying that these Mayavadis were in a good situation because they were actually humble. They were listening. They were very humble. They were open to admit that they were wrong philosophically, that they were, and their practices also were not maybe the most ideal things to do. So the first thing that they do is apologize. We're so sorry that we challenged you, that we doubted you, that we thought we knew better than you. Just listening to you, it's very clear that you are like an exceptional personality. We can learn a lot from you. So that's a good start, right? Please excuse us for the offenses we previously committed by criticizing you. Okay, let's go on. Any thoughts?
Rich has his hand up.
Oh, Rich, tell us before you have to take off.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhupada Priya. I'm a little embarrassed because I feel like it's a very beginner's level question. But
It's okay, we're all beginners here.
thank you. So I want to ask. I know it was saying that the Srimad Bhagavatam is like a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, but I want to know exactly what is the Vedanta Sutra? Is the Vedanta Sutra like all the Vedas or like all the stuff we learn? That's the Vedanta Sutra. Is that what that means? I don't know what it means.
Yeah, so after compiling all the Vedic knowledge and dividing the Vedic knowledge into 4 parts, into 4 Vedas, right? The Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, and Rig Veda. So then Srila Vyasadeva was thinking that that's a lot. Let me try to summarize this. Let me just try to extract the essence of the Vedas, the conclusions, the most essential conclusions of the Vedas, and just write them in a very concise book. So that concise book containing the essence of the Vedas or the conclusions of the Vedas is called Vedanta Sutra. So literally that's what it means. So Veda means knowledge, it means the Vedic knowledge, and then Anta means the end or the conclusions. And Sutra means these very, it literally means thread. It means like as, minimal as possible. So they took the conclusions of all the Vedic knowledge and he presented it very minimalistically in these very short but dense aphorisms, that kind of like needed to be unpacked to be able to actually understand. So that's the Vedanta Sutra. But the problem is that because it was so concise, without much commentary, without much explanation at all, then it was subject to a lot of interpretation, and people started interpreting it in all kinds of different ways. And some ways that were aligned with the author's intention, and some ways that weren't. So then, when Vyasadeva saw that happening, he's like, "Okay, people are really not getting it. So I need to write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which actually explains the purpose and the intention and the knowledge of Vedanta Sutra." And that commentary is Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why we study Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's more accessible, it's easy to understand, and it makes the purpose and the conclusions of the Vedanta Sutra very clear. It's written by the author himself, so we know it's not a misinterpretation, speculation.
Thank you, Prabhupada Priya. I hope everyone has a good rest of the class.
All right, have fun at work. See
Thank you.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, all good? All right, let's go on to 149. Say haite sannyasira viveke vamana Krishna Krishna nama sada karaye grahana. You want to start, Saturday?
I'm sorry?
You want to read?
Sure. From that moment, when the Mayavadi sannyasis heard the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra from the Lord, their minds changed, and on the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they too chanted Krishna Krishna always.
Krishna Krishna.
In this connection, it may be mentioned that sometimes the Sahaja class of devotees opine that Prakashananda Saraswati and Prabodhananda Saraswati are the same man. Prabodhananda Saraswati was a great Vaishnava devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Prakashananda Saraswati, the head of the Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares, was a different person. Prabodhananda Saraswati belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya, whereas Prakashananda Saraswati belonged to the Sankaracharya Sampradaya. Prabodhananda Saraswati wrote a number of books, among which are the Caitanya Chandramrita, Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, Sangita Madhava, Vrindavan Shataka, and Navadvip Shataka. While traveling in southern India, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Prabodhananda Saraswati, who had two brothers, Venkata Bhatta and Tirumalaya Bhatta, who were Vaishnavas of the Ramanuja Sampradaya. Gopal Bhatta Goswami was the nephew of Prabodhananda Saraswati. From the historical records, it is found that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled in South India in the year of 1433 Shakabda, or AD 1511, during the Chaturmasya period, and it was at that time that he met Prabodhananda, who belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya. How then could the same person meet him as a member of the Shankara Sampradaya in the year 1435 Shakabda, 2 years later? It is to be concluded that the guess of the Sahaja Sampradaya that Prabodhananda Saraswati and Prakashananda Saraswati were the same man is a mistaken idea.
The point here is that these Mayavadi sannyasis, they were very satisfied with Lord Chaitanya's explanations, and they were inspired and convinced that basically they aren't God. Krishna's God, and that we should glorify the Lord by chanting his holy names. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Caitanya excused all the offenses of the Mahavadi sannyasis and very mercifully blessed them with Krishna Nama. Upward. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Can I make it smaller? It's like
smaller?
The words is just yeah. So I can get one sentence. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, in the mercy of incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is addressed by Srila Rupa Goswami as Maha Vadanya Avatara. Did I say that right? Vadanya Avatara.
Vadanya Avatar, yeah.
Or the most magnanimous incarnation of Srila Rupa Goswami also says, oh my, Karuna ya, help, Karuna ya,
Vadanya Avatar,
Karuna. Kalu?
Yavatirna Kalo.
Hello. It is only by his mercy that he has descended in this age of Kali. Here in this exemplified, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not see the Mahavadi sannyasis because he thought of them as offenders to the lotus feet of Krishna. But here he excuses them. And Sabada Kasmi Apardara. Aparata. This is an example in preaching. Apni Akari Bhakti Sikhamu Sabari Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu teaches that those whom preachers meet are almost all offenders who are opposed to Krishna consciousness. But it is a preacher's duty to convince them of the Krishna consciousness movement and induce them to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Our propagation of the Sankirtana movement is continuing despite opponents and people that are taking up this chanting process, even in the remote parts of the world like Africa. By inducing these offenders to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu exemplified the success of Krishna consciousness movement. We should follow very respectfully in the footsteps of Lord Caitanya, and there is no doubt that we shall be successful in our attempts.
What's the main thing here that Prabhupada is saying? Main advice? Huh? Even with offenders? Okay, so, yeah, don't worry if the people are offensive.
Humility.
Be humble,
Get him to chant.
get in the chat. And be tolerant, right? He doesn't say that word, but it's kind of like, he's saying that everybody in this world is gonna be offensive, because they don't know how to respect things properly, especially, preaching in the West, because the culture is very different, so you can't expect that people are they're not gonna, just because of not understanding the value of things and not understanding, not having grown up in a culture of respect, basically. In the US, it's like nobody respects anyone very much. Everybody's just like Joe Schmo on the street, even if somebody is like a millionaire, it's like you are kind of thing. It's like kind of like the mood in the US. It's gonna be a lot of money. It's gonna be driverless. Those Americans are like that. So Eastern cultures are a little different, right? But Americans are like that. So I remember when I first met devotees, the very first time I met devotees, I was in Malaysia. And I went to a house program. So I was in Penang, Malaysia, and they didn't have a temple there at the time, so I just went to a house program. And they gave me a Bhagavad Gita, big hardcover Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita as it is. And then we were leaving the house program to go somewhere. I can't remember where we were going, but we were getting in the car to go somewhere. And so all of our shoes were outside, and I was wearing like sneakers. So I had to sit, bend over, lace up my shoes, do the whole thing with both hands. I could have just slipped them on. But I had the Bhagavad Gita. So in school, this is what we used to do. We'd come from class, right? And we'd have all of our books like this or whatever. So then you have to open up your locker. And what all the kids would do, it was like, anyways, this is just what we did. I won't put a judgment on it. But you're standing here, your lock's there, your books are here. We would just drop the books from this height, and they would go, boom, all the kids. So whenever I was in the locker, it'd be like, boom, boom, all the books are going on the floor like that. And it's just what we did. So then I'm there, I've got my book, I got to put my shoes on with the Bhagavad Gita. I'm just like, I just dropped it from high on the floor, right near the shoes, and it went slap. And everybody looked at me and they're like, and I just didn't drop it in the shoe place. And then they're like picking up the book and being like, and I'm just like, it's your problem. Okay, so anyways, no, try to treat the book and see the scripture. I'm like, okay. So then we get in the car, I'm going somewhere, and then I'm looking at the book and there's a picture of Prabhupada, and I was like, hey, look, check this out. You know, and it's like, I think the first time I'd seen, really like paid attention to a picture of Srila Prabhupada, check this out. And I'm like pointing to the picture of Prabhupada. And then someone's like, what? I said, this guy's got lips just like Mick Jagger. Like, what can you compare Prabhupada? Anyways, it was just so fun. I just felt like everything that I was saying and doing was wrong, you know, and I didn't mean anything bad. I was just kind of like excited and just doing what I do, just acting according to my lifestyle, right? But it was just shocking and horrifying to everyone around me. So, anyways, there was there was a couple there. So most of them were like, Malaysian people of Indian origin, so they were all just totally appalled and stuff through me. But then there was a couple that was visiting, and there was a young couple, and he was from London and she was from the US. And then, so they were getting this Indian Raji was like Indian woman was getting on my case like anything, and then the British male devotee turned around and was like, it's okay, don't worry, I'll just talk. Just like let it be. And then actually he saved the day. He said something so cool. He said, he really saved the day. He's like, yeah, those kinds of lips, like very, very broad mouth, like full mouth that kind of, because Prabhupada's mouth is like when he would smile, his mouth would just like come out to here, Yeah, wide smile. And Mick Jagger, that's what I noticed because I was like watching a music video of Mick Jagger singing, and his mouth was just so broad, like so like, and anyway, so then he said so he also knew that Mick Jagger from Western culture. So he said, yeah, people who have, he said there's a whole science called physiognomy that you can tell things about a person's personality by their facial features. And people who have that kind of mouth, it means they're very generous. He said, so Mick Jagger was very generous in like giving his music, because he was very much like a person who was, giving himself to the world as a performer, as a public performer. And Srila Prabhupada is very generous in giving knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And I felt so validated. Anyways, so yeah, he saved the days. But I'm saying this as an example that when we share Krishna consciousness with other people, they may make offenses due to ignorance, due to lack of understanding of proper, etiquette and culture. But we just need to be very tolerant and forgiving and patient. Just very sensitively and with a lot of tolerance, just keep trying to work with the person. Because anyways, it was a bit of a rocky road for others to deal with me, but I think I'm all right. So yeah, it means that there's hope for everyone. Okay, now full story. Let's go to the next one. Okay, 152. Oh, Hannah's got her hand up. Yes, Hannah G.
I just had a question because in previous texts that we've read, we were hearing about like Vaishnava aparad, like offending devotees. So I just want to know, how do we distinguish the difference between something that should be tolerated and shouldn't be tolerated?
Yeah. So yeah, offenses to devotees are very serious, as we know. It can really make a lot of havoc in our spiritual lives, so we have to be careful about that. But if somebody is just, there's a difference between somebody who is being offensive because they just don't know what the etiquette is, they just don't know the conventions of how to behave around devotees, and somebody who's like envious and really wants to, put someone down or make them look bad deliberately. So usually the kind of aparad, the kind of offense that really damages us spiritually is the kind that's coming from a place of like envy and, maliciousness rather than just ignorance. Otherwise it's like a child, you just, sometimes people, even though they're adults, but if they're very new to the culture, it's almost like you have to see them a little bit like a child who just doesn't know any better. And so sometimes kids just like will interrupt or, say awkward things, because they don't know any better. They haven't learned. So social etiquette and graces, or their brains aren't developed enough to even like understand how to navigate those things. So yeah, just to see people like that. Just be patient with them. They will grow, they will learn. Okay. Okay. Good. So text 115. Tabe
Sala Sanyasi Mahaprabhu Kelaya Isha Karina Sabe Made Vaishaya. All the sannyas took the Lord into their midst. Thus they all took their meal together. Previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had neither mixed nor talked with the Mayavad sannyasis, but now he took lunch with them. It is to be concluded that when Lord Chaitanya induced them to chant Hare Krishna and excuse them for their offenses, they were purified, and therefore there was no objection to taking lunch or Bhagavat Prasadam with them, although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew that the food had not been offered to the deity. Mayavadi sannyasis do not worship the deity, or if they do so, they generally worship the deity of Lord Shiva or the Pankopasana, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Durga Devi, Ganesh, and Surya. Here we do not find any mention of the demigods or Vishnu, and yet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted food in the midst of the sannyasis on the basis that they had chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and that he had excused their offenses.
Very interesting, right? So yeah, after the conversation, then they all started chanting Hare Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya became very happy with them, and they became happy with the Lord, and you know, they all kind of like just joined together as one happy team, right? And they all took lunch together. So it's kind of surprising, actually. Usually we hear that Lord Chaitanya is very strict about what he eats. You know, like when he traveled through South India, he would be sure to stay only in the homes of Brahmins, you know, and eat food cooked by Brahmins. He would eat food cooked by lower class people. Yeah, I mean, I guess these Mayavadis are Brahmins, but he wouldn't have normally be eaten with them if they were Mayavadis. But now that they're chanting Hare Krishna, even though I guess they weren't trying to get how to offer food, but because they were devotees now, they were becoming devotees, and they were sincerely chanting and accepted the Lord, they respected the Lord, they were acknowledging the Lord's position. So then he thought, okay, let's use to food with them, use to watch with them. So I remember, like, when Srila Prabhupada was traveling with his disciples, they would go to the houses of, you know, these Indian families, and the families would cook. So they weren't devotees, but they would cook, and you know, whether the food would be offered or not, I'm not sure, but they would always eat, and devotees would eat. And I remember one time they were at the house of this very, very nice family, very cultured and high-class family, and they had cooked a big meal, many preparations. It was all spread out there on the table. So they were going through and being served, and then there was one sabji, one vegetable dish that had onions in it. So generally, like devotees, we don't eat onions or garlic. But the devotees could see like the onions, little strips with the little lines, you know, like, you know, it's like a piece of, and they could smell it. So they're like, and then one of Prabhupada's disciples said, "There's onions in the sabji." Prabhupada says, "There are no onions in the sabji." And then the devotee said, "No, I can see it. Right there, Prabhupada, look, there's an onion in the sabji." And Prabhupada looked, he said, "There are no onions in the sabji." In other words, just eat it. Shut up and eat it. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we are at these people's home. They have received us. They've done their best to try to please us by cooking this nice meal. You know, they're really open to hearing from us and doing kirtan and learning. Like, just don't make it awkward. You know, like, don't do something to hurt them or upset them or make them feel like they failed to please us or something, you know. So it was about receiving the receiving the hospitality was more important than, having completely pure food or whatever. So it was interesting to know, that sometimes, we live by certain principles, but sometimes you can break a lower principle for the sake of a higher principle. And in this case, the higher principle was the relationship. Like even sometimes, I'll be visiting my family, and I tell my parents, like, this is my diet. My dad knows, he knows what I eat. He likes to cook, right? So, he's an old guy and he cooks the same stuff all the time, and he cooks with onions and garlic usually. So he knows it's like no meat, no fish, no eggs, no onions, no garlic. But I think he's just so in the habit of like, he doesn't put onions in it, but he made this stuffed shells, like these pasta shells, the big shells, and he put ricotta cheese and spinach and tomato sauce. And then he put it all together as all like, vegetarian and everything. And then at the end, he like sprinkled some like garlic salt or onion salt or something on the top of it, like, because he would do that along with the herbs and stuff. Because that's just how he mixes the dish. And then he served it, and it's like, as soon as I saw it, like he put it on my plate, I could smell it, and I could see it. And I was like, oh, shoot. And then I was thinking, I'm just going to eat it, So I just ate it. And then afterwards I said, Dad, I think you put some garlic in that, didn't you? He was like, garlic? And I was like, yeah, you sprinkled some. And then like, it's like, okay, don't worry about it. Just like next time, I'll try to remind you. So yeah, I didn't want to make, after we went to a whole trouble, to make something nice and to make it the way I like it. Because normally they would probably put like, but he kind of went out of his way and he just forgot one little thing. So I wasn't going to make a whole drama about it. Like, I can't eat this, and then go away with my parents thinking, oh my God, she's such a fanatic. She doesn't eat our food. So yeah, sometimes it's like that. You have to think what is the more important principle. I mean, we're not going to eat meat or something, but something like that. That's not breaking our initiation vows or terrible act of violence or something. Okay, so we can see this from the example of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He had just gotten them. He had just, like after a long period of time of listening to them and they're listening to him, he had just gotten them to like come to a higher level of realization and chant Hare Krishna and appreciate Vaishnava philosophy. And now they're like, oh, would you like to eat lunch with us? No, I can't eat your food because you didn't offer it. Like that would have just been like, all right, we're going back to our mind body philosophy then. Right? So you don't want to like. Okay. Have any of you had experiences like this where you had to navigate some awkward situations? Family or others, yeah.
My mom all the time, basically. I mean, she always forgets little things like that, but she knows like the main things. Just when I went home for Christmas, I was making dinner for I invited some like school friends over and I was cooking for them. And I needed help because I was running out of time. They were arriving. And then she started helping me and she was like tasting it and stuff. And, like touching her mouth, trying it and then, going back. And so it's like dirty. And according to, more, I guess, like refined rules of cleanliness, it's like, she broke that, and it's not really offerable anymore because she tried it. I was like, oh my God, what can I do? I needed help, and this is what happened. I told her before, like, but so stuff like that.
Love their habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you can just put some water on it. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thanks. No pressure, but if you want, you can accept this just for the sake of purifying it. You don't have to eat it, just bless it or something. So that my friends get the benefit, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. It's not a perfect world. So we have to be able to navigate imperfections.
I think Krishna sees the intention behind everything, and that's the most important thing. So I think sometimes we get caught up in the minutia when the recognition that Krishna knows all. There was no intent to mess the food up, to not make it offerable, particularly by a non-devotee. So his mother was helping to help him provide a good time for his friends who were in town. And so this was her love language of helping her son. I think he sees the love in the cooking still more so. even with a little hand to mouth,
Yeah.
than were she to not offer to help her. I'm not good enough to help you cook your food.
Yeah, or for him to communicate that, oh my God, you just spoiled the whole
Right,
thing. Then we
right.
have to throw this away.
Yeah. Yeah, the parents, they're like cleaning you and teaching you everything, and then now you're imposing like all these new rules on them. And
Right.
it's like, since when did you become like a clean freak fanatic? Like,
Okay.
I had one reflection.
Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking from reading this verse, you can see how Lord Chaitanya is God, because oftentimes we hear that Krishna does one thing for many purposes. And in this verse, we can see so many things that Lord Chaitanya is accomplishing with one simple thing. Like he's being merciful to the Mayavad sannyasis, that even though it wasn't done in perfect etiquette, he accepted it. He's also showing the reciprocal nature of the Lord, that, if something is done with love, he will accept it. So they chanted and it pleased him. So now he's accepting their offering. And he was so humble that he saw them as devotees, even though they had only chanted Hare Krishna once. And on top of it all, it's an example to us on how to act. Like, I'm pretty sure maybe you thought of this pastime whenever you accepted your dad's stuffed shells. So Lord Chaitanya is accomplishing so much with one act. It's so amazing.
Yeah. Amazing, right? Yeah, and also just the amount of like, I guess you could say value he gave to them chanting, right? It just like they went from being like offensive, roughly atheistic, Mayavadis who were criticizing him, to being devotees, to him accepting them as Vaishnavas just because they had said Krishna, Krishna. So how much the Lord appreciates our chanting, right? Every day we're getting up in the morning and chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. And chanting. So yeah, it's very pleasing to the Lord. The Lord really takes notice and takes special care of us when we chant his holy name. It's just like, yeah, and even if we try to offer him something, and even if it's not perfect, he's going to accept it because he's going to think, they're my devotees. She's my devotee. He's my devotee. If he's chanting my names, I have to accept his offering. Whatever. So.
I have a funny story.
Yeah,
It's embarrassing, but it's funny. My
I
friend
already
who-
told my embarrassing
My-
stuff.
I promise mine's probably a little more. Not to try to equate things, but my friend who first brought me into Bhakti Yoga, it was very clear that I had a passion for trying to find the name for God. I had been doing a lot of reading into Eastern philosophies and things, and so he had talked to me about offering food, and I had a broken foot at the time, so I was offering most of my food, or making most of my food, excuse me. And I wasn't told any stipulations, so he just showed me the prayers in the prayer book, how to offer, and that was about it. And it wasn't meat.
I was all the way to that.
No, it's worse. I offered marijuana because I didn't know. And so I knew none of the regulative principles. And I was so excited. And I sent him a picture and he came right over and he wrapped me around and he laughed with me. And he said, "This is a one-time thing. Krishna will take it this once because you had no idea. I should have told you some more things. So if you want to offer your food," and then he went through the etiquettes with me and said, no meat, no eggs, no fish, no onions, no garlic, etc. But that was a moment that, it was very much, I was glad that he was graceful, because if he would have said, "You dummy," or something like that, or "How could you think offering this to God would be okay?" Now in hindsight, it's easy to see, why would that be okay? But I didn't know, and you don't know what you don't know. So this was an opportunity for him to act as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and to shower me with grace and then to educate me in such a way that I would know to never, ever do that again.
I think it's less bad than offering meat because
Yeah.
marijuana doesn't
No life would take
you
it.
don't have to kill.
Sure.
Like you don't have to kill
Sure.
some creature. It's just yeah.
This was 5 years ago, just for the record.
Now you know. All right. I'm 52. Diksha Kari Mahaprabhu Ayala
among the
Ayala
Mayavadi to
Sannyasis.
Sri
Caitanya
Caitanya
Mahaprabhu.
Mahaprabhu, who is known as Guru Sundar, returned to his residence. Thus the Lord performs his wonderful pastimes.
Right, alright, so you went home. Gaura Sundar, very beautiful name. Gaura means golden color and Sundar means beautiful. So Lord Chaitanya is very tall. He was like 7 feet tall or something. And he had very long arms that went down to his knees. So when he lifted his arms up in the air and went hockey ball, it was like like something. Yeah, he was very beautiful. His features, his form, everything is very beautiful. In fact, that's one of the ways it says that there's a verse that talks about Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world, and talks about how he appears with his associates, his servants, and his weapons. And so that it says that that Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't use weapons. Like, you know, other incarnations, they come like Vishnu comes with his chakra, and Balaram has a club, and Parashuram has an axe. You know, like they actually have weapons. But Lord Chaitanya, it says that his weapon is his beauty. He's so beautiful that people just see him and they're like, just tell me what to do. We saw that's how the effect that Lord Chaitanya had on these Mayavadis, right? Because he came in, he very humbly sat down by the shoes, you know, in the entryway, the dirty place there. And then he was so beautiful and so effulgent, right? He had this like radiance that was emanating from his body, like the sunshine, you know, it was like glowing. And they're just like, whoa, who is this person? This is like exceptional personality. I mean, looks like God, you know, sitting there. And they just took him and said, please come sit. Exalted seat. So yeah, without even hearing from him, without knowing him, but just by his beauty, they were impacted. So Gaura Sundar, text 153. Chandrasekhar Tapan Mishra Arasana
During the arguments of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and seeing his victory, Chandrasekhar, Tapan Mishra, and Sanatan Goswami were all extremely pleased. Purport. Here is an example of how a sannyasi should preach. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Varanasi, he went there alone, not with a big party. Locally, however, he made friendships with Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra and Sanatan Goswami. Also came to see him. Therefore, although he did not have many friends there due to his sound preaching and his victory in arguing with the local sannyasis on the Vedanta philosophy, he became greatly famous in that part of the country, as explained in the next verse.
It's interesting because at this time when Prabhupada was writing his purports, ISKCON was a very new movement. Then he was sending those sannyasis off like big assignments, you know, like, okay, you go to China, you go to Africa, you go to Iceland, you go to Germany, and they would just go, he would send them alone, right? Like my spiritual, he said, you go to South America. He didn't know anyone, there were no devotees there, no temples there. He just went to South America. Wow. And he just started like, you know, meeting people and talking to people and getting them to chant Hare Krishna and getting them to help him organize programs. And then more people were coming, and then he got them to raise money, and he started, there were no books in the local languages, there were only English books. So at first he was going to universities and talking to people that spoke English. And then he got them as soon as they started getting serious, he asked them to translate books into Portuguese and Spanish languages, and then he started a whole BBT in Brazil, producing books in Portuguese and Spanish languages. Yeah, so he ended up like, starting the whole movement in South America just single-handedly. Yeah.
What year? It was before. It must have been before 1975.
Yeah, yeah. So Prabhupada was doing that. He was sending his sannyasis, go to this country where you've never been before, and maybe you don't even speak the language, and we have no books in your language, in that local language, and just preach, and just make devotees and start a temple and build a community.
Wow.
And they were doing it. They were so empowered by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and Prabhupada's power, and Prabhupada's determination, and they were like, I'm doing it for Prabhupada. They were fired up. So as you hear in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is encouraging that Lord Caitanya, you're following the footsteps of Lord Caitanya. Just see, he went to Benares. There were no devotees there. It was full of Mayavadis. He didn't know anyone there. He went totally alone, and he just started talking to people. He met a couple people that were favorable to him. They allowed him to stay in their house, and then, and then people noticed him, and he got invited to this lunch with these antagonistic people who were basically just inviting him there to criticize him and tear him apart, which they tried to do. But then he ended up making them into devotees, and now he's got a big community of devotees there. So it's a victory. And then, so this verse, what's happening is Lord Chaitanya came back says he went back home where he was staying, and he was staying with Chandrasekhar on top of Mishra. And so when he got back home, then obviously they're asking, so how did it go? Like, how was the lunch? Like, what happened there? And then Lord Chaitanya told them all about it. I said this, and then I said, well, first of all, I sat down there, and then they brought me up, and then they started trying to criticize me, but then I listened to them, heard them out, and then they questioned me, and then I waited for them to actually ask me questions and be receptive to my answers, and then I started explaining Vedanta Sutra, and then they're all just like totally transformed, and then started chanting, and we all had prasadam together, and it was glorious. And they're all like, very happy to hear the outcome. So it's very personal. Okay, 154.
Came to see the Lord after this incident, and the entire city praised him.
Yeah, so the sannyasis are like the sannyasi, the main one that he was the leader of the group that he had lunch with there that he spoke to was Prakashananda Saraswati. He was the leader of all the sannyasis in Varanasi, which was the headquarters of the sannyasis. So when the leader of all the sannyasis became a Vaishnava, basically, then everybody else became really curious, like, whoa, like, what's going on? We want to meet this person that influenced you so much, because sure, they were very ecstatic after that. They're like, wow, this is like great. And they're telling him, we want to meet him. So then all the Mayavadi sannyasis are coming to meet the Lord after that, and the Lord is also explaining things to them, answering their questions, and everybody is just thinking the Lord is absolutely the bee's knees. It's like, wow, what a great person. I'm so glad he came to Varanasi. I'm so glad he opened their eyes about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Varanasi, Puri, Aila, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Puri Sahasrana Loka Haila Mahadanya.
Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and all of its people were very thankful.
Very thankful. Mahadanya. Yeah, they really appreciated him. So it was a success. All right, now they're gonna describe it. Okay, 156.
Laksha Loka Aise Prabhu ke dekhite, Mahavida Haila Dware Nare Praveshite.
The crowd at the door of his residence was so great that it numbered hundreds of thousands.
So everyone was walking, like Lord Chaitanya became like a sensation, a celebrity overnight. transforming the lives of everyone in the city. Amazing. It's been quite a scene, right? Yeah.
I think this goes to speak to something we don't see as often anymore, with the importance of elevated individuals garnering the whole respect of the community. And so when the mind was changed of those venerated beings, that everybody said, we don't need to question that. We believe them and trust their judgment. And so if they're willing to be a Vaishnava, we need to follow that advice as well, which in today's age, we just wouldn't see anymore.
Yeah.
Jesus can come back today and probably get crucified again, if that's your belief system.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, the culture there was very much faith in the leaders, like because in those days leaders actually had,
Even to the Mayavadi's credit, they were willing to change their mind when presented with valid information.
Yeah,
Which
and they
today's
actually-
people changing their mind, like,
right?
what?
Yeah, now everybody,
Especially politicians and leaders.
they're just stuck in their muck in the mud, right?
Very much.
Okay, next verse has a very long verse. We'll break it up. 57.
When the Lord went to visit the temple of Visheshwara, hundreds of thousands of people assembled to see him. Purport. The important point in this verse is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly visited the temple of Visheshwara, Lord Shiva, at Varanasi. Vaishnavas generally do not visit a demigod's temple, but here we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly visited the temple of Visheshwara, who was the predominating deity of Varanasi. Generally, Mayavadi sannyasis and worshippers of Lord Shiva live in Varanasi. But how is it that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who took the part of a Vaishnava sannyasi, also visited the Visheshwara temple? The answer is that a Vaishnava does not behave impudently toward the demigods. A Vaishnava gives proper respect to all, although he never accepts a demigod to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Samhita, there are mantras offering obeisances to Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, the sun god, and Lord Ganesh, as well as Lord Vishnu, all of whom are worshipped by the impersonalists as Panchopasana. In their temples, impersonalists install deities of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, the sun god, goddess Durga, and sometimes Lord Brahma also. And this system is continuing at present in India under the guise of the Hindu religion. Vaishnavas can also worship all these demigods, but only on the principles of the Brahma Samhita, which is recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We may note in this connection that the mantras for worshipping Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Goddess Durga, and the sun god, and Ganesh as described, we may note in this connection the mantras for worshipping Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Goddess Durga, the sun god, and Ganesh as described in the Brahma Samhita. Shrishti Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Shaktir Eka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanu Rupam Apiyasya Tateshte Sa Govindam Adi Purusham Bhajami. The external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit or spiritual potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, persevering, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Yata dadi vikara vishesha yoga sanjayatena hitata asti heto yasham bhutam apikata sampaiti karyat Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. You want to take the rest?
Milk is transformed into curd by the actions of acids, yet the effect, curd, is neither the same as nor different from its cause. Viz. Milk, I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is, I almost called it Shiva, is a similar, Shambhu is a name for Shiva, yeah. Sambhu, not Shambhu. It's a similar transformation for the performance of the work of destruction. That is the lyrics in the song that was played this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's many verses. The ones that we sang are different verses, but they all end with the
I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom we separated subjective portion Brahma, receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests a portion of its own light into all the effulgent gems that bear such names as Surya Kanta.
Yeah.
Worship the primeval Lord Govinda. Ganesh always holds his lotus feet upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all obstacles on the path of progress in the worlds, in 3 worlds.
Yes, sure. Yes, with the college
Sun, full of infinite effulgence, who is the king of all the planets and the image of the good soul, is like the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time.
This is positive. So, yeah, Srila Prabhupada is saying that he's commenting on how Lord Caitanya went to, like, every day would go to the temple of Lord Shiva and pay his respects to Lord Shiva. So some devotees might be thinking, oh, well, as Vaishnavas, we worship Lord Vishnu Tattva, we worship Vishnu, Krishna. We don't worship demigods, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that those who worship demigods for material things are not so intelligent, because whatever the demigods can give you is just temporary, limited material things. They can't give you liberation or, even the purification that you need to become qualified to go back to Godhead. So it's kind of like you're just chasing after immediate short-term material results rather than your ultimate spiritual benefit. So then why would you do that, right? But here, Prabhupada is saying that while devotees generally don't worship demigods, especially don't worship them for material things like these like karmakandis do, but we don't, at the same time, we don't disrespect the demigods, and we may go to temples of the demigods and offer our respects to the demigods, but he says Vaishnavas can also worship all these demigods, but only on the principles of the Brahma Samhita. So now these verses that we quoted, ending with Govindam Paripurusham Tamaham Vajami, these are verses from the Brahma Samhita, which are giving us some guidance on the appropriate way to worship the demigods. So the first one is in relation to Goddess Durga. So it says, okay, you can offer your respects to Goddess Durga as the external potency of Govinda. Govinda is another name for Krishna. External potency of Krishna, who is delegated by Krishna with the task and the powers of creating, preserving, and destroying the mundane world. So she manages the mundane world on behalf of Krishna, so we're worshiping her not as, the great goddess, the supreme, but as a servant of Krishna. And then So then the next one is about Lord Shiva, who's also called Shambhu. So the way we worship Lord Shambhu is similar, right? That he's says that Govinda, Krishna, he expands himself and transforms himself in the same way that milk becomes yogurt, right? So yogurt is made of milk, but it's different from milk. So in the same way, Shiva is very similar to Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, but he's a little bit different, right? He's a little bit different. And Krishna expands himself in that way, in that different form as Shiva, in order to perform the work of destruction, the cosmic annihilation. So we can worship Lord Shiva also as servant of Krishna. And in the Bhagavatam it said, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the best Vaishnava. So he's also a devotee of Krishna. So we can also worship him as a devotee. And he appears again and again in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the context of different pastimes in which he's serving the Lord or showing the qualities of the devotee. So we can be inspired by the service that Lord Shiva performs to Krishna, both in terms of helping serving in the annihilation of the universe when the Lord says it's time to do so, or just in his service of worshiping the Lord, right? Lord Shiva worships the Lord. So many pastimes about that. So, and we can look to Lord Shiva as a Vaishnava who can also, and we can ask him for his mercy so that we too can become very nice devotees of Krishna. Okay, then the next one is about Lord Brahma, and it says that Lord Brahma is also a expanded portion of Govinda or Krishna, who receives power from the Lord for regulating the world. Right, just this sun, just as like there's a jewel called Surya Kanta, which manifests its own light. It's a radiant jewel that absorbs light from the sun and then it emits that light. It's in the same way Brahma gets his potency from Krishna, and then with that potency he acts in wonderful ways in the world. That's Brahma also as a servant of Krishna. And then Ganesh, what does he do? He performs this function of destroying all obstacles on the path of progress within this universe, the upper, the lower, and the middle planetary system. So we can approach Ganesh and we can ask him to please destroy any obstacles that might be in the path of my spiritual advancement. Okay? And my going back home, back to Godhead, becoming a pure devotee of Krishna, whatever internal or external obstacles there may be in my purification, in my spiritual advancement, in my service that I'm trying to perform, please just remove them. And then just wait, this finally the last one is which one? The sun. Yeah, so some people worship the sun or the sun god. And similarly it says that by the order of Govinda or Krishna, the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time, basically rising and going overhead and setting, illuminating the world so that the functions of the universe can go on according to the desire of the Lord.
I had a question when you were discussing Ganesh. So you'd said that Srila Prabhupada had said that it was not very intelligent to pray to these demigods. Typically it was for short-term things, but it sounded like perhaps there could be the exception of Ganesh if we were praying for him to remove the obstacles of our spiritual path.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But even for that, he recommended that it's better to worship Lord Nrsingadev.
So,
because he said that Ganesh worships Lord Nrsingadev and gets his power from Lord Nrsingadev. And one name for Lord Nrsingadev is Vigna Vinasa, which means the destroyer of obstacles. Yeah. So sometimes they say Bhakti, Vigna, Vinasa, Nrsingadev, Pita. So it means that he destroys the obstacles of Bhakti. The obstacles in the path of Bhakti. Nrsingadev removed, just like he removed the demon Hiranyakashipu from Prahlad's life, because he was an obstruction to his practice of Bhakti.
beautiful explanation.
Yeah. You want to say something about that?
Oh, I was gonna say I actually have taken it as part of my daily puja every morning. I do a Just the Ganesh like beach mantra type.
Oh.
Gan Ganapate Namaha, Om Gan Ganapate Namaha. But for me, that's kind of how it is. I've always just prayed to Ganesh. The basic idea: may your large ears be able to easily hear my prayer. May your strong trunk, like an elephant, moves a path through the forest, through the jungle, move the obstacles from my path to Ram, to Krishna. So that's I like to hear that because that's
Good.
what I always thought the purpose was. Where that was, if it removes obstacles, obstacles to what? What are we after?
Yeah,
So of course, obstacles
yeah.
to God.
So yeah, when it's sort of condemned is when we're praying to demigods to remove the obstacles to our, getting the girl of your dreams or getting, the winning lottery ticket or, just whatever.
Curious about one reflection though, that would a Vaishnav ever because it's a consort of Vishnu, but is it common for Vaishnava to pray to Lakshmi?
Well, generally we worship Lakshmi together with Lord Vishnu. Right?
Yes.
So we worship Lakshmi Narayan. We worship Radha Krishna.
Yeah.
So we worship the divine couple. Whatever Lord is most favorable to our devotion. So, but we don't pray to Lakshmi without Lord Vishnu. We're not trying to get Lakshmi for our own enjoyment, but we just, these feminine counterparts of the Lord, these consorts of the Lord, they tend to be more merciful, right? It's kind of the tender-hearted feminine nature, right?
Yes.
That females tend to be more compassionate, more soft-hearted, more forgiving, more gracious. So sometimes the Lord can be stern, right? So we pray to Lakshmi Devi or Srimati Radharani. You are so merciful, you're so compassionate. Please help me and please ask your Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu to accept me on his devotee. So we pray like that. It's kind of similar. Okay, we're over time, so we better wrap it up because Nirtika Shore is here and we're supposed to have another meeting at 5. Okay, Hannah, just text me your question by WhatsApp. All right. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki
Ki jai.
jai. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami.